All right, buckle up because this week we are diving into a topic that's always evolving, always fascinating: customer experience.
And we've got some really insightful data to unpack here, all stemming from a recent episode of the ClientZen podcast.
Oh yeah, they always bring the numbers, don't they? But ClientZen also cuts through the noise and gives you those actionable insights, which is what we're all about in this deep dive.
Exactly. We're talking about those key takeaways that can actually transform how you approach your own customer experience strategy.
Because let's be real, a good product or service is just table stakes these days. It's the experience that makes you stand out.
And that's where those ClientZen stats get really eye-opening. Did you know that 52%, that's over half of U.S. consumers, have walked away from a purchase because of the bad customer experience?
Oof. Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, we've all been there, right? Stuck on hold forever, getting bounced around between departments.
Exactly. It's incredibly frustrating. And that frustration can easily translate into lost business. ClientZen really drove home the point that it's not enough to just fix problems anymore. You have to exceed expectations at every single touch point.
Make them think, wow, that was easy. That was actually enjoyable.
Right, exactly. It's about creating those wow moments.
Now, speaking of exceeding expectations, clients have brought up a point that I think is really interesting. They said that 88% of online shoppers are more likely to return to a brand that offers a personalized experience.
Personalization is huge, and that statistic really highlights just how much it matters to today's consumers. Think about it. In a world where we're constantly bombarded with information and choices, it feels really good to be seen and understood.
Like you're not just another transaction, right?
Exactly, and that's the power of personalization. It's about using data ethically and transparently, of course, to understand your customers' needs and preferences, and then tailor their experience accordingly.
Okay, so data is key here, but how do we actually make sense of it all? ClientZen mentioned something called sentiment analysis software. What is that in a nutshell?
It sounds very technical, but it's actually quite simple. Sentiment analysis software basically allows businesses to go beyond what customers are saying and actually understand how they feel.
So it's like giving businesses emotional intelligence.
Precisely. It analyzes customer feedback, social media interactions, anything with text to detect the emotional tone. Are people happy, frustrated, confused?
That's fascinating. It's like having a window into the customer's mind.
And that kind of insight can be incredibly valuable for tailoring your responses and creating a more empathetic and ultimately more satisfying customer experience.
Okay, so we've got data, we've got sentiment analysis, and ClientZen also touched on the elephant in the room: AI. Apparently, a whopping 72% of business leaders are planning to use even more AI for customer experience in the next year. Should we be worried about robots taking over?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But ClientZen's point wasn't about replacing human interaction altogether. It was about using AI strategically to augment what humans do best.
Augment, not replace. I like that. So how would that look in practice?
Well, think of it this way. AI can handle a lot of those routine, repetitive tasks that bog down customer service agents. Answering FAQs, providing 24/7 support, things that AI can actually do quite well.
Which then frees up human agents too.
Exactly. It frees them up to focus on those more complex issues, the ones that require creativity, empathy, that human touch that AI just can't replicate.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot where AI and human intelligence work together. So we're talking about AI as this kind of super efficient assistant handling the things that would take us humans way longer. But ClientZen also stressed that it's not just about these individual interactions, right?
You're absolutely right. It's about the big picture, the whole customer journey, every touch point, from the moment someone first hears about your brand to, well, hopefully years down the line as a loyal customer.
Yeah, it's like planning a trip. You want every step to be smooth, enjoyable, no hiccups along the way.
Exactly. And just like with trip planning, a seamless customer journey takes some serious thought. You need to map it out, anticipate needs, identify those potential pain points.
Because nobody likes a frustrating detour when they're trying to reach their destination. And ClientZen brought up a stat that really hammered home this point. 70% of customers, think about that, the vast majority expect every single person they interact with at a company to have full context on their previous interactions.
Yeah, nobody wants to feel like they're starting from scratch every time they talk to a new person. It's like, didn't we just go over this?
Right. It's incredibly frustrating. And it makes you feel like the company just doesn't care.
And that's where those integrated systems come into play. Having A robust CRM, a customer relationship management system that can really centralize all that customer data, give everyone a 360-degree view of who they're dealing with.
So not just, okay, this is your order number, let me pull that up. It's more like, hey, welcome back. We see you've been with us for a while. Here's some things you might be interested in.
Precisely. It's about personalized, proactive support, which ultimately leads to a much more satisfying experience and more loyal customers. Because speaking of loyalty, ClientZen cited this stat that was pretty eye-opening. 86% of customers would abandon a brand after just 2 negative experiences.
2 strikes and you're out.
Yeah, it shows you how fragile loyalty can be. 1 bad experience, okay, maybe it was an off day, but 2, it starts to feel like a pattern, like you don't really care.
And in today's world, there's always another option, right? Another company vying for your attention, your business.
Exactly. So the stakes are high. But the good news is, building loyalty doesn't always require these grand, expensive gestures. Sometimes it's the small things that make all the difference.
Okay, I like that. Give me an example. What kind of small touches can have a big impact?
It could be something as simple as a handwritten thank you note or a follow-up email after a purchase, just checking in to make sure everything is okay. Or maybe it's a customer service agent who goes above and beyond to resolve an issue.
Right, like really takes ownership and makes you feel heard.
Exactly. These might seem like small gestures, but they make a huge difference in how customers feel about a brand.
They show that you're not just after their money, right? That you actually care about them as individuals. And ClientZen pointed out that this customer-centric approach is becoming more and more important in the business world.
Absolutely. They mentioned that 90%, that's a staggering number. 90% of businesses are now prioritizing customer experience over everything else.
Which makes sense. At the end of the day, happy customers are your best advocates. They're the ones who leave good reviews, recommend you to their friends, and keep coming back for more.
It's a win-win. And it all circles back to this idea that customer experience is no longer just one department's responsibility. It's got to be a company-wide mindset.
It's got to be in the DNA of the organization.
Precisely. Because with all this talk about data and AI and these sophisticated systems, it's easy to lose sight of the human element. But that's when it all comes back to human connection.
That feeling of, hey, you know what? This company gets me. They understand my needs, they value my business, and they're genuinely invested in making my experience a positive one. So how do we make sure that human touch doesn't get lost in the shuffle, especially as things get more digital, more automated? So we're striving for that perfect blend of high tech and high touch, right? Using technology to enhance those human connections, not replace them.
Exactly. And a big part of that is empowering your frontline employees.
The ones who are actually interacting with customers day in and day out.
Exactly. Give them the tools, the training, the autonomy they need to do their jobs effectively. Remember that stat ClientZen mentioned? 74% of customer service agents said they'd feel more effective if they had access to better tools and data.
Right. It's like give them the resources to be customer service superheroes.
Exactly. But it's not just about the technology, of course. It's also about good old-fashioned empathy. ClientZen talked about that too.
Oh, yeah, emotional intelligence.
Exactly. Training your team to really listen to customers, understand their emotions.
Because sometimes what a customer says and what they mean are 2 different things.
For sure. So yeah, train your team to pick up on those cues.
And then respond accordingly in a way that shows they actually care. Because ultimately, it's that emotional connection that really matters.
It's what turns a one-time buyer into a loyal customer. And that brings us back to what Clients was saying about customer experience needing to be a company-wide mindset.
Not just one department's responsibility.
Right. It can't just be siloed. It has to be woven into the very fabric of the company culture.
Everyone's responsible for the customer experience.
Everyone. From the product developers to the marketing team to the finance department, everyone plays a role.
Okay, so where do we even start? I mean, it's a lot to take in.
It can be overwhelming, yeah. But remember, even small changes can make a big difference. Start by asking yourself, what's one thing you can do today to improve the customer experience you deliver?
I love that. It's about taking action.
Exactly. Maybe it's sending out a quick survey to get some customer feedback. Or maybe it's just having a company-wide meeting to reiterate the importance of customer centricity.
Because ultimately, it's about exceeding expectations, anticipating needs, and, yeah, creating those wow moments that ClientZen talked about, the ones that customers will remember.
Exactly. And I think most importantly, it's about remembering that behind every transaction, there's a human being. Treat them with respect, treat them with empathy, show them that you care.
because at the end of the day, that's what makes all the difference.
It really does.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of customer experience. Lots to think about, lots to implement.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing process.
It is. And to our listeners, we hope you found this deep dive valuable. Remember, the future of customer experience is constantly evolving, so stay curious, stay adaptable, and keep those conversations going. Thanks for joining us.